Whoa, pachow. It's red. Ah, Gangstagrass has appeared on your computer screen. Once again, back to hang out with all of you on a Friday night. That's the Gangstagrass show. We will sell you tickets for your whole seat, but you'll only need the edge.
Like that. All right.
Yeah. So what is happening, everybody? We're going to see as soon as we get some people tuning in on the Twitch and the YouTubes and the Facebooks.
Yeah, y'all want to start off when we got enough folks on and just give them a synopsis of what we got going on tonight?
Well, we do actually have some new websites we get to tease before we tell you who our awesome guests are. We now have fb.gangstagrass.tv, which will take you directly to our Facebook videos page, and we have yt.gangstagrass.tv, which will take you directly to our YouTube videos page. So thanks to Dolio the Sleuth for setting that up for us today. So you can now go to gangstagrass.tv for Twitch, you can go to fb.gangstagrass.tv for Facebook, and you can go to yt.gangstagrass.tv for YouTube.
Look at that. Made it easy for you.
Where can I go to watch this on Friendster?
What is that?
You can delete that.
Go to myspace.gangstagrass.tv.
Can we please set that up?
christianmingle.gangstagrass.tv.
Singlefarmers.gov.
Ooh. Oh, no.
And of course, Suze is in the building.
Hey, Suze, we're going to see you on election night.
Mm-hmm.
Have you voted, Suze?
Somehow she's watching on YouTube but commenting on Facebook, she says.
Oh. So her Facebook comments are going to be like ahead of the stream.
Right.
People are watching. People watching the Facebook are going to be so confused. What is Suze talking about?
I'm actually going to be using all of those pathways so I can get through all the chats.
Yeah.
And we got on YouTube, we got Superstar Child tuning in from New Zealand. What is up?
Good morning.
Say hello to Jacinda for us. She's awesome. And who knows? We might have to run down there and hang out with you soon.
Yeah, can we make that happen? I hear there's hobbits around there. I want to touch those. Hey, who wouldn't want to touch a hobbit? Come on.
Yeah, you can't just run around touching hobbits.
I'd say something first, like, watch out.
Watch out. You understand?
Then you can touch them, but you push them out of the way and be like, oh, I saved your life. Woo. That's how I got to touch him. Then you go home and be like, yo, I got to touch a hobbit the other day. I lied to him and said he was in danger.
My son knows what it is.
I'm here with you, bro. Trying to do some hobbit touching.
That's what they call it, I believe.
Okay.
The opinions expressed on this show are not the explicit opinion of Gangstagrass, Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube, or specifically the opinions of the guests on the show.
They are, however, the opinions of singlefarmers.gov.
Is that a site? Because I will buy that domain name right now.
We got Northeast Florida tuning in on YouTube. Corsair Omicron, what's happening?
Corsair Omicron?
That's right.
That's the greatest name ever.
Awesome.
Is that a Decepticon name or something?
I don't know, but he sounds like he should be adventuring. He or she should be adventuring somewhere.
Inventoring?
Adventuring.
No. Can inventoring be a word?
Or inventoring, either one.
Yeah, inventoring.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like how you make up an adventure as you go? Let that be my life. I'm having an inventoring life.
You guys are familiar with Hubby Jenkins, I presume.
Hubby's on here?
No, but I was just going to bring up the fact that he is like obsessed with Choose Your Own Adventure.
Oh, they are the best. I love them. They're the best. They're
So
the best.
he
They're the
does
best.
like live streaming of him reading Choose Your Own Adventure books and letting people say what they want to go. I've seen him live in concert a couple of times, and he'll do that in shows too. He'll be like, between these songs, I'm going to read this next chapter of this Choose Your Own Adventure book, and the audience can tell me which way to go.
Will Wheaton would do that on the
okay with
cruise
that.
too. That was a very popular
those
event
books, man.
on the Joko cruise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did. I think I performed some alchemy today.
Oh.
How'd you do that?
So I have these roasted sunflower seeds, but I get them unsalted so I can determine how much salt I want to put on it. And what I did is I put celery salt and chili powder on them.
Yes.
Huh.
So now they're like Lowry's sunflower seeds.
No, I mean chili powder. So they, nice little kick to them.
You know what? I'd almost want to hear like, don't they have like a lime salt?
Oh, you mean the salt?
Yeah.
No. Well, maybe they do. I don't know. I figure most companies that make seasoned salts may have different flavors of salt. I just get celery salt.
Because I think that lime salt and chili powder combo, or maybe just squeeze a little bit of lime on it, or I don't know.
Gangstagrass, covering the hard-hitting issues.
Always.
Always. What type of seasoned salt do you use, America?
That's right. And
New Zealand?
we have some very seasoned salt for you tonight.
Ooh, segue.
Nice.
Segue.
Nice.
Really good. Professional level right there.
Dolio, you want to tell everybody who you're bringing on, since this is actually a result of coming straight out of Dolio's hometown.
Yes, as many of you know, I'm originally from Pensacola, Florida. So tonight we're going to be visited by a good friend of mine, longtime friend from Pensacola, who is running for D5 city council member for the city of Pensacola, is Tenayade Broughton. She will be joining us tonight, and I also believe that we will be visited by David Alexander, who is currently running for Escambia County Sheriff.
I'm really excited about that, and he used to be police chief, right? Police chief.
He was, I think he was originally elected. He was originally made police chief of Pensacola Police Department in 2015.
This is going to be great.
Yeah.
So.
And Pensacola's it's like about 50,000 people bigger?
Yeah, about 50,000 people.
And, they're coming on our show, so we will get to find out their positions on Hobbit touching.
Yeah.
All the important stuff.
Yeah.
I saw David's website, and he is all about mutual respect, about changing the copper copy relationship. And I believe yes, that that would definitely apply to Hobbit touching.
Like where we're starting with this guy.
And let's just put in a reminder here that on Tuesday, election night, we will be hanging out here. So catch us again so that you can hang out on election night with people who are keeping it chill and having some fun and watching what happens and not giving you a bunch of hype. We're just some fun people hanging out, and who knows what's going to happen. But election night here, 9:00 again. Tune in with us, 9:00 Eastern, for the Gangstagrass election night live stream hangout.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Maybe I'll recite my cookie recipe to you guys.
Does it rhyme?
Will you?
Well, since I've did a song about food.
Mm-hmm. Well, you got the sweet potato pie recipe into rhyme, and that worked out very well.
Yeah.
Got to test out the rest of
It was originally not really intended to be a song. It was just a way for me to memorize my recipe.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I mean, whatever works.
And the rest of us just benefited from it.
Yo, Dolio,
Especially if you made the pie.
Dolio, if you're using it as a memory tool, can you rap in Python?
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay.
I'm already working on some.
I'm
already working on some Java ones.
You saw it. You saw the idea born here tonight. We're having some Code Raps tracks coming out at some point. For
Oh
sure.
my gosh, the Code Raps EP is going to be so huge, so huge.
Yo, can we call that EP Deep State?
If you want.
To confuse people?
Yes.
The dark web EP.
the dark web EP. Okay, all right. Now we're closing in on it a little bit.
Needed a subtitle. That's all.
Speaking of which, so those who tuned into our son's stream on Tuesday saw the title of the second hip hop mixtape, Born. Will the cipher be unbroken?
Will the cipher be unbroken? Well done, Danjo. I was trying to just come up with something, and nothing happened. And Dan was like, "You know what? Boom!" Just dropped it into the Slack, into the Twitch chat. Kept it moving. I'm like, all right, well done.
Oh, sorry, we got back on the salt, but Superstar Child mentioned chicken salt.
Chicken salt.
That's a delicacy that Randy and I encountered for the first time in Chicago.
And I'm still trying to figure out why I never encountered it before.
Hey,
what?
Me either, but she gave me the recipe for chicken salt.
Huh.
It is a real thing.
What? How? Yeah, how do you do that?
Where?
How do you
Well,
make
one of the
salt?
main ingredients is that thing we found in the UK after the kimono party. Well, no, before
the kimono party. That's right. Wait, I have something for just this occasion. Just this occasion. It is the thing that we found, which was...
While looking that up, I just want to give a shout out to William James in the Facebook chat, who's tuning in from Abu Dhabi.
Yeah!
Yeah.
I had quite the adventure in Sharjah last time I was over in the UAE.
Oh.
Wait a minute. Is that the brand that we found?
Yeah, this is your
Chicken crackling?
your thumb is in there somewhere.
Oh, that's a picture of the thing.
Uh-huh.
Wait a minute. You have to send me that over the Slack so I can find that specific brand, because I've been sampling different ones that I've encountered, but they weren't quite the same.
You've encountered more? I've been looking all over for these things. I can't find them anywhere.
I found them on the interwebs.
I did see some on Amazon, but all the reviews were deeply bad.
They are hollow imposters.
Yeah.
I know because I tried them.
And those are vegan, right?
Oh, no.
Yes.
All the chickens were vegans.
These in fact have like hair on them. Like that's how not vegan they are. But it's fried, so it's okay.
It's like veins sticking out.
Yo.
Throbbing.
Are we back to the Hobbit touching?
No. You don't want throbbing if you're Hobbit touching. That's a sign that someone's gone about.
That assumes that somebody left the Hobbit touching, and we all know that didn't.
We're gonna need David Alexander to get here real fast.
I would a lot of hate mail from Middle Earth, man.
Yeah.
I would like Hobbit touching.
It's all right. The post office in Philly will never get it to you.
No throbbing involved.
I know.
The Hobbit touching, please.
Yeah, our Hobbit touching is strictly platonic.
Our resident Hobbit touching expert has spoken. Thank you, Pharaoh.
Strictly platonic. I mean, unless unless there's consent, whatever.
Oh,
Yeah.
Also, I want to be clear. I was not dissing the Philadelphia postal workers. They're doing everything they can. I was just talking about the horrific slowdown.
I've endorsed Gangstagrass by saying, "Yeah, that was fire," as they walk by a plane.
Yeah, my mailman was in one of our videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's our new one because our original one, who had been our mailman for a good 30 years or so. Well, I haven't lived on this block for 30 something. My wife's been here much longer. So when he retired recently, right before that new one started. So it was a very emotional moment for everyone in the neighborhood. Yeah, we all showered him with presents and gifts and cards and pictures and stuff.
Aww.
Which is cool because now he comes to the neighborhood.
If anybody doesn't know, Dolio lives on the most wholesome block in America.
It is really wonderful down there. It is really, really wonderful.
It's pretty sweet.
And their block parties are the truth.
It's like if Mr. Rogers' neighborhood had a hip hop flavor.
Yeah. Although I heard from somebody recently that bad things happen in Philadelphia.
Badass things happen in Philadelphia.
And
they left the word out. That's what.
Yeah. Philly folks want to give us a report from Philadelphia. How are folks doing there?
Listen,
we've had some.
Yeah, let me explain something to you real quick.
We've had a lot of sirens and helicopters.
Break it down.
Yeah.
I'm a 47-year-old man on punishment right now. I can't leave his house. Cannot leave my house right now because there's curfew in Philadelphia because cop shot this ball that was wilding out, and they didn't have to shoot him, and then they shot him, and then everybody went crazy, and they was tearing up stuff on 52nd Street. They was tearing up stuff. Did they make it down your way, D? Was they wilding out down there?
Some of it made it down here. I imagine because of the amount of helicopters and sirens I've been hearing for the past 3 days. As you know, because of all the COVIDness, we haven't really left our block much, except for if we go somewhere, we'll pile in the car, mask up and then head to the river or head to some isolated location like Bartram's Garden or something where there's nobody. So the kid can run around and not worry about the anti-maskers running around, sprinkling their droplets everywhere. But it's unfortunate that the outrage is rightfully so, and hopefully it means some sort of change happens. But right now we're going through the hurtful stages of it. I'm hoping it does not dissuade people from executing their constitutional right to vote, because election day is still Tuesday. So anyone who has not yet in Pennsylvania done the early voting is now closed. But if you have a mail-in ballot that you have not mailed in, drop it off at one of the drop boxes, because in Pennsylvania the mail has been on a slowdown because of the various chicanery that's been going on from our Postmaster General.
I saw a graphic of that. It's truly outrageous. Like in central Pennsylvania, they're still at like 80% of their mail getting delivered within 5 days. But you start at I want to say it was Pittsburgh was like around 65%, and Philly was down at 30%. It was just, and there was something about the number of mail-in ballots going out had dropped to between 1 and 30% of them arriving in 5 days or less, which is nuts.
Also, as far as that regional difference in mail being delivered in a certain number of days, that may also have to do with just the density of zip codes. the zip codes around there are very dispersed. So like you're talking about, maybe it's gonna not take that long if there's only one post office to have to deal with, because that's the one zip code for 200 miles.
Well, there was also, I mean, there were something like 5 of the big sorting machines were yanked from, I forget what the post center was, Cedar or something maybe. Anyway, and other ones had been restored in other places, but those sorting machines were not put back.
Yeah, the ones that are restored are basically because the people who work the post offices, who actually care about the mail getting places.
Yeah, they were like
put the machines back in because they weren't getting replacements for these machines. They were just taking the machines and dismantling because they were told to by somebody who wants to stop mail from working. But my hat goes off to all the postal workers out there who are doing the hard work, man. Who knew that the postman would be prophetic as a film.
Yeah, right.
People saw that movie and they were just like, "What in the hell is this?" I'll watch it because he's in it, but Yeah.
Between that and Waterworld, we all owe Kevin Costner an apology.
Right?
What? Waterworld was terrible.
He's gonna have to change his name to Kevin Costradamus.
Yeah, right. Waterworld may not have been the best movie, but it was prophetic as hell, apparently.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean,
all I'm saying. That was not a comment on the quality of the movies.
Okay.
That was a comment on the premise of the movies.
Right.
All right.
There's a lot of movies out there with great premises that do not turn into great movies, unfortunately.
I like The Sixth Sense, though, having finally seen it after I don't know how many years. Pretty good.
You guys seen commercials for that horror movie called Bad Hair?
Oh,
What?
I saw a commercial for it. I saw one commercial for it. I mean, it's a horror movie in the sense that Scary Movie is a horror movie, I imagine. But it looks funny.
That one. I read an article about it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's about like a possessed weave or something like that.
Yeah. What a great sentence. About a possessed weave. Oh, okay.
You know what happened? Somebody saw some tumbleweed one day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. They were like, "It's moving,"
and they probably saw the tumbleweed right after watching like Killer Clowns from Outer Space or Attack of the Killer Tomatoes or something like that.
Funny story. I used to have ex of mine used to have a blog. Shout out to Amber Evans, called Missing Tracks, of her just taking pictures of
Tumbleweed
in the street. Tumbleweed, yeah. Tumbleweed, I'm sorry. From the Midwest, I pronounce it wrong sometimes.
Yeah, I mean tumbleweed. So it's like nice. You're out there walking around, you just see the wind blowing a tuft of hair down the sidewalk. You would normally find them in areas where you have a lot of like braid shops right next to each other. Some cities that have a strip where there's a bunch of like hair braiding salons right next to each other. So at the end of the day, or like a Monday when a lot of them are closed because they open all the way through the weekend, so they tend to take Monday off. You'll be like just walking down the street and you just see the hair that just accumulates because the wind and blew it from shop to shop.
What's funny is I see that in my neighborhood because I have a lot of barber shops and salons around here. I mean, I could start a blog myself about it. Gangstagrass Beats, do you want to see a bunch of missing tracks? The Gangstagrass Missing Tracks photo album.
That's a special for the Barnstormers. Or you could also become a Barnstormer if you want to specifically request that you not get that.
By the way, today we sent out an email to our Barnstormer subscribers who can log in to their page on gangstagrass.com and find a bunch of goodies for them. that we just put up. And anybody that's not already in the program, think about heading over and signing up to be a barnstormer. There's a few different levels, but the easiest one is $4 a month, and you start getting some exclusives, some behind-the-scenes stuff, unreleased stuff, video, MP3s, all kinds of things, stuff from the archives. And you go to gangstagrass.com/barnstormers. And you'll be helping to make the magic happen, because that money 100% supports us to keep making music and videos and doing live streams and all that kind of stuff.
That's right. It really means a lot. It makes a huge difference, especially now. But that's a big part of how we're able to do this. And the content is so cool. Every few weeks, Wrench and I get together and we like sift through the archives, and we have found some really, really fun stuff. So this time around, there's a couple of tracks from Dan Whitener's EP Crossover, including one that was featured in the Spike Lee movie Black Klansman. So that's for platinum and above barnstormers. And we have, am I remembering correctly, another exclusive video from the My Brother Where You At studio sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah, for nickel, platinum, titanium, and the elite cardboard and gaffer tape levels of barnstormers.
And some other MP3 downloads that are going out to barnstormers this month are for something very mysterious.
Oh yeah.
But I was sworn to secrecy on this, but it's called BLDR81. And some stuff has started to come out from it, and it's a highly secretive organization. So all I can tell you is to check it out, and maybe more will be revealed later.
It's really great.
Mm-hmm.
It gets stuck in my head. Do we have a tiny clip of that we can play?
Audio, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on a second. Let's find something here.
Yay! Wrench just has all these. I mean, whoever gets to, go through the Wrench archive for Behind the Music is going to be a very, very excited archive go-througher. There's a lot of cool stuff there.
That's the official title?
Yes, I believe so. Archive go-througher, Hobbit toucher.
Is that coming through? You hear some screaming?
That's probably going to end up being like a title. That's going to be a song title for the next Monkey Knife Fights.
Wait, is a Hobbit toucher technically called a hobbler?
It should be.
One who hobbles.
Where's the L coming from?
Hobbler? It's like a cobbler, but it's a hobbler.
Uh-huh. Apparently, if you Google BLDR81, you find some stuff. But let me know if this is coming through on the audio.
Yeah, that came through.
That.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, we are on fire. There's a little sample of that. What I can tell you about that is it definitely did not involve me getting a bunch of weirdos into a recording studio to scream random things at a microphone.
How many of those weirdos were roller derby girls?
What weirdos?
Exactly. Exactly.
First rule of weirdo Club. It should not tell people about Weirdo Club.
That's also the first rule of Barnstormers. We've been violating it up and down. But Sue's in the Facebook chat says that all the cool kids are Barnstormers. So if that sort of thing influences you, there you go.
Yeah. Actually, I uncovered a hidden gem, and that ended up getting leaked during one of my DJ sets for you guys. That'll probably end up in the Barnstormers' hands pretty soon. I have to master it, and it'll be good. Which is a version of "Ain't No Stopping" that most people have not heard. Ooh. It was before it was "Ain't No Stopping."
Right.
Nice. I mean, if we're gonna go crate digging.
Yeah. So and I hadn't realized that Dolio had never released this Dolio the Sleuth track, but he had shared it with me back in the day. And when I was working on a Gangstagrass album early on, I went to him and I said, "Oh man, this track, I want to use these verses and make a song out of them." So I got the acapellas, and it became "Ain't No Stopping," but had originally been a Dolio the Sleuth track. And Barnstormers are going to get it.
Yeah,
it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, you get to hear Dolio playing guitar and bass and beats.
And
Which you don't know is a dope ass sound. Our son, you got that track in the wings,
bruh. That's all happening tomorrow, dude.
Okay.
So, my good friend Alexa Gold, she's a singer, an amazing singer, who we met years ago, Wrench, at we did that show on Market Street with Will Fisk and oh God, what's the name of that crew?
Android people.
Yeah.
And Will Fisk, you might remember from "Feeling Fine" on my solo album.
Yeah.
That was our Whitney Houston, sudden Whitney Houston memorial show.
Yeah. So that's when I met Alexa. She and I have been cool ever since then. She's an amazing singer, and she's actually a photographer, and she did the pictures for my daughter's quinceañera. She makes beats now. And she sent me a couple of joints that I'm digging. The one joint I wrote something to, and then she did something else with it, but I still want to do something with it. But she sent me this one last week. Man, listen. So she was like, "Yo, I need somebody. I'm gonna reach out to a friend of mine, put a little bass on it. It's gonna take a couple of weeks because I don't know." I was like, "Yo, I can send that to my man right now." Send it to Pharaoh. He sent some bass back on it. Yo. This joint is ridiculous. So as soon as I get the full thing layered together, because he sent a bunch of bass lines. As soon as I get the whole thing layered together, I'm gonna record that, and that may actually once I get her permission on that may hit the Barnstormers as well. But it's disgusting, so lovely. And Pharaoh, the bass that he put down on this thing, whoop! Oh, listen, that thing was gonna be ridiculous.
Pocket on that one's my bread and butter.
That thing is so sweet, so very dope. So shout out to Alexa Gold.
If that's her first foray into beat making.
She's been like kind of messing with it a little bit for a while, but she's really getting into it now.
Because she was taking classes and getting in mastering and mixing and sound engineering at actually the studio where we recorded Nowhere to Run.
Oh, she was working with those guys?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That was one of the best nights of my life.
Yeah, Drummer Boy Studios over on South Street.
One of the best nights of my life.
Yeah, because that was the night that
The Eagles won the NFC Championship.
Yeah, they won the division championship. I remember. See what happened. We were in their booth. I think that's when maybe Dan was in the booth at the time when this happened, and you were looking at your phone. And then, like, towards the end of the we were like, okay, we're rapping, everything's in the can. We'll do what's after we just finished listening to the dope track. You reached into your book bag. You pulled out a Philadelphia Eagles flag, tied it around your neck like a cape, and said, "I belong to the night," and walked out.
Yes.
Funny story.
Walked out the door with the cape flapping, like
that cape, that flag / cape right there, right there.
Yes, he was like, "I belong to the night," and I remember that night because on the way to the studio, because it's in walking distance from my house, I walked to the studio. And as I was walking down 9th Street, I could see Philadelphia police officers greasing light telephone poles, like just rubbing grease all over the poles. And I was like, "What's going on here?" And they're like, "Well, just in case they win, or just in case they don't." See, here's the thing people don't realize. In Philadelphia, when stuff happens sports-wise, people climb the poles. Right, so, but they were greasing the poles, and I can understand them greasing the poles maybe on Broad Street or something. They were greasing the poles in South Philly. Now, let me tell you the reason why that is silly. Every year, South Philadelphia, particularly the neighborhood I live in, hosts a contest that involves climbing a greased pole. It's a tradition that's been going on for like 50 years. They have a greased pole that's taller than the telephone pole, where they put like meat and money for some reason. And people climb that pole to get sausages and hams and
money in the meat?
And money, no, they put money in like an envelope hanging from a string and they climb it. But like, I'm like, yo, if you were going to be greasing poles, this is not the neighborhood to be greasing the poles.
Yeah, right. They already mastered that up here.
Right.
Yeah.
So I will admit, I would have put that in the category of Florida man. And I'm curious. So we now have.
Well, the thing is, like, it's funny that the South Philly man and Florida man are very much alike.
They're very similar.
The difference is that there's South Philly man doesn't end up in the news as much.
Yeah.
Because Florida has different rules about, basically every arrest record becomes public record in the state of Florida, which is why you hear mostly about Florida man so much, the sheer density of reports about it. But, it's just, but you do see some pretty outlandish things happening in the state of Florida, but, it's Florida. It's hot. The weather's nice all the time. You get a lot of time on your hands. You might get into some mischief.
Right. Well, on that note, we have a guest joining us.
Yes.
I'll let you do the introductions.
Yes, everybody, this is Taniade Broughton from Pensacola, Florida. She is running for city council for District 5, which happens to be the district of my home. My parents and everybody are still in that area. Why don't you introduce yourself to the fellas and the lady and the people? I think you're on mute.
Yes.
Okay. Peace. How y'all doing?
Hey.
Whoa.
Good. What's happening?
It's happening. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a fan. I share your videos and tell people about you, and I'm actually hoping to get you all here sooner than later.
Heck yeah.
Wish. Florida seems like a fun state to play in.
It is. And Pensacola is a great state. I don't know if Dolio ever talks about his hometown.
Go there. We actually finally got a Florida booking. We were booked to play in Ocala, and that was one of the tours that had to get canceled this year.
Right. Well, I am in Northwest Florida, so Ocala is.
Yeah, that's way off. But it's really just us breaking the seal on the state so we can start meandering through it, which is kind of what we do.
Great.
But they've heard a lot about Pensacola. They've definitely had a bunch.
Okay. Well, we're on the blues, the Mississippi Blues Trail. We have a marker here dedicated to that. We were on the Chitlin Circuit.
Nice.
So we had plenty of performers come through here. We even still have in existence the motel that the performers, or one of the motels that the performers would have to stay at during segregation, as they weren't allowed to stay in the other venues, right? So I'm really hoping that we can kind of get that place fixed up and put it on a trail or make it an attraction, especially since the main character of the movie, The Green Book, Don Shirley, is from Pensacola.
Actually, where I used to live, which is like on DeVilla Street. So he's from like that Belmont DeVilla area.
Right. And that was our musical hub. That and a couple other places too, but eminent domain and gentrification really tore down some of those old historical places. And us, like a lot of other places in the north, the interstate came through.
Yeah.
And raised the African American historical neighborhoods. And of course, if you look at the maps, the aerial views, you can see how it kind of intentionally curves to come through the black, even though it made more sense for it to go straight, right? But the spur just kind of takes its own. And we still really see the effects of that when we talk about generational wealth and how it affected land loss and property loss for African Americans. So we, like any other Southern town, have a strong history of displacement in that way, but also, folks leaving here in what was called the Great Migration, when African Americans went north and out west. A lot of our people went to New York, but also a lot of them went, because we had this interesting Creole population here, a lot of them ended up in California. And because of it, people have their reunions, they're still connected, but it also speaks to what happens when a people are displaced. And what effect does that have on not just the demographic shift, but also the voting population, right? So how heavily Democrat would some of these Southern sections be had folk not had to flee?
Right.
Very near us, there's a town called Jay, Florida, which is what's considered a sundown town.
Yes.
And if you all have heard of sundown,
I told you guys about Jay.
But is it still like?
Well, what happened
unofficially, maybe.
Is also in 1922 there was a lynching, and like most of the black folks were told, like, you got to go, right? Can't come back. And of course, this population is a lot smaller than what it would have been, had folks not had to flee. So this was in 1922. People slowly trickle back when they work on the little farms and things. But no, it's not. It's not like what it was, because remember, it's also associated. Remember, I started by saying this is associated with land wealth and generational wealth. Right. So when these people leave or are forced to leave,
they leave all that behind.
They leave all that behind. They leave their cemeteries behind. They leave their churches behind. They leave their businesses behind. And what it creates is this sense of I would say, almost like I'm not even going to call it a genetic fear, but just this socialized fear, to where when, Dolio and I were young, we were just told, like, certain parts of the county you just don't go to.
Nope. Well,
right? There's just places that, black folks aren't supposed to go. So we stay away from that, in effect, limiting whatever opportunities we might have in those places, so to build up those places. And it's just it's a part of our social fabric.
I assume one of the places you weren't supposed to go at the time was the city council.
Oh, right. So Pensacola has interesting history. We're older than St. Augustine. I don't care what they say. Right? We were established first in 1559 by Tristan de Luna. Africans were on the ship. So this city has always been multiracial in that way, because Africans and Aztecs were on those ships. And there was a hurricane a couple of years later. Everybody left, and we came back later, right? So in it though, there was this continuity of our existence in that we always had this blend and this, this is early before like race was really established, right? So what we see in our early records is these different categories of different racial categories like mulatta, mulatto, pardo, parda. Some were called, just all kinds of names depending on how much African or European or African, Native American or European blood a person had. There was Grife or Grief, however it's pronounced. But just a bunch of different categories because of, we're the part of Florida that had a heavy Spanish influence. And at one time, Pensacola was the capital. So interestingly enough, it kind of created this, and because we were part of the Underground Railroad, like the southbound Underground Railroad. So think about it. Like if you're living in Georgia, you're not going to make it to the Ohio River. You're not going to get to Canada, right? So they were fleeing to Florida because at the time, because of this old beef between the Spaniards and the British, they basically
it wasn't actually part of what we would consider a contiguous United States yet.
Right. So and of course, us not really having that plantation system. So essentially, had a lot of Black folks fleeing to Florida because the rule was for a certain period of time, if you could get to Florida and convert to Catholicism, you could claim your freedom. So that's what we see happening from the coastal Georgia and the Carolina coast. You just see Black people just escaping, liberating themselves and getting to Florida. So if you look at a map of freedom towns or maroon communities, there are several throughout Florida.
Well, as you can see,
Alexander, and essentially, from Fort Mose, which was a free Black town. I'm sure you all have heard of Zora Neale Hurston and Eatonville. Yeah. So that's Florida. Florida's always been this strong place with this deep African presence. What ended up happening in Pensacola, because we were the capital at one point in time of West Florida, you had a lot of African Americans with rights, freedoms. So our population was essentially around the 1820s. It was essentially half Black and half free, because half of those Black folks were free people of color. So with that, again, 2 points. One, we didn't have a agricultural based system because we're by the beach, right? So the slave labor was skilled labor. It was your brick masons, ironsmiths, people that did jobs that took a level of skill. And I'm not saying that growing cotton wasn't skilled, because it definitely was, but we just had that other type of skilled labor. So what happens after the Civil War, you end up with this city where you have all this skilled labor. We African people made the forts, the Fort Brancas, Fort this, Fort that, all the military forts. So after the war, you have Black people who have skilled labor, and you have a city, a part of a country that needs to be reconstructed. So essentially, they were the ones to rebuild the town. And this is coming from, folks who have been landowners, property owners, literate, when laws were passed for the free people of color to force them to leave, right? Because at a certain point in Florida, if you were manumitted, you had to just leave the state. So after the war, a lot of them come back, and they want to reestablish what was taken from them. Next year, we will be celebrating our 200th anniversary as an American, as a part of the United States in 1821, Andrew Jackson and all that, later on Trail of Tears, all those things. So this is the heart of that story. Now, during Reconstruction, there were a lot of African Americans who participated in government. So getting to your point, we had a Black mayor in 1874. We had a Black marshal, Black city council members, Black county commissioners, tax assessors, just all the things, right? Just all the things. Mm-hmm. And in 1885, with the introduction of these different populations coming from other places, and for other reasons that'll just be too long for me to get into, and that's not why we're here tonight. But African Americans were put out of office, and they were out of office all from 1885. In the last one, I think they finally kicked them out. It was actually a pastor in Mendolio's church. They finally got rid of him in 1900. So after this, no African Americans are in local government. That was until like the 80s, right? Wow. And so for all this time, you have this strong attempt to dominate African American people. We had lynchings here. I documented about 8. I think we're at 8 right now. We found that were in the town square, which is our plaza, and there was always this attempt to not just for disenfranchisement, but to take away the gains, because Black people in Pensacola, Booker T. Washington wrote a whole chapter about us, about how awesome the city was, right? So because of our resilience, there was always pushback. So much so that in the 1960s, when we had our civil rights, our boycott, our lunch counter sit-ins, it was the longest in civil rights history. It lasted for 707 days.
What? Wow.
Right. But, I asked the people, I said, well, how did you manage that? I mean, 707 days, how did you manage to get the things you needed if you're boycotting? And he said, excuse my language, it was easy because we had our own ish.
Mm-hmm.
So you boycotted the lunch counters downtown, but you still shop in your community. As you're working on running for office, so people were running for office all in the 60s, all in the 70s, but they were just getting pushed back. And one man was able to get elected, and his presence is really what pushed this lawsuit with 10 people. We call them the McMillan 10. The way the lines were drawn, an African American could never win an election. So essentially, there was a court case, a class action suit. Actually, one of the people involved went to Mendolio's church, Dr. Elmer Jenkins, to sue, to be able to draw the lines in such a way that the population with the biggest pockets of African Americans could have a seat. And that is our county, District 3. When I look at the notes, it's very interesting to see like Thurgood Marshall's opinion on it and Justice Rehnquist's opinion on it, right? Just to see that these famous historical figures are talking about our little town that had to sue for everything we got, whether it be equal teachers' pay, whether it be for a seat on the board, whether it be for our freedom, just everything. We always had to fight. Like all my life I had to fight. Like that's the story of Black Pensacola.
It's really funny. I'd been researching something in Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
Our council seats were at large for the longest time.
That's what we had, right? Yeah. So they instituted the at-large system because with the at-large system, everybody has to vote for you, and that's not gonna, So they changed it and drew the district lines.
Yeah, it wasn't representing the Black community in Omaha for a very, very, very long time. It wasn't until Ernie Chambers got in there in the early 70s that he was able to get the bill through.
Right, so we experienced a similar story. And it's interesting how, even though we're all in these different places, we're united by this experience and our relationship to democracy that really, if you take it back to the Constitution, we weren't included. So we even had to fight to include ourselves to be recognized in the Constitution. So we know it's always going to be a struggle. It's always going to be a fight. I know Chief Alexander probably has less time than I do, so I want to give him the spotlight.
If you see on the screen, you already see the name. This is David Alexander. He's a former police chief, city of Pensacola. He's a candidate for Escambia County Sheriff. Can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Welcome.
It's an honor to have you here.
Well, it's an honor to be asked to be a part of this discussion. I try hard not to focus on the historic significance of me running for sheriff. But at the same time, when you look at the issues, it's very relevant. And certainly we have to emphasize to voters how important it is that they get out and cast their vote. Right now, we're in a climate where citizens across race, across religion, ethnicity, socioeconomics, they're wanting change, and they're fed up with the way things have been done. And of course, it just mimicked some of the things that Tenyate has gone over. And there's a lot of research has been shown that how voting districts are drawn up will have a direct impact on economically disenfranchised neighborhoods, which usually are predominantly neighborhoods of people of color. And so, but as a sheriff, I definitely have to run a platform that everyone, outlying rural areas have traditionally been left out. And so that's what has given a lot of strength and momentum to my candidacy, because I've gone out in those areas, I've heard the stories, and that's why I really want storytelling to be part of my my term as sheriff, because every neighborhood has a story of how they had to fight to survive. And you'd be surprised, some of these stories are going to bring more similarities, because what it's going to point to is that people in political positions have controlled the flow of economics and resources to these various communities. So when you started dealing with making neighborhoods safe so people can actually sit down and talk about problems, then you see a lot of resolution that takes place. And that's one of the things that I draw from my experience in the city of Pensacola, because we were able to turn some areas that had traditionally been plagued with blight. Matter of fact, downtown was plagued with blight, and community policing was strong in turning that around. And certainly Belmont de Villas, which is now recognized as a national news landmark, that was once said to be a worthless piece of real estate. And so it was community policing under my leadership that turned that around. So I want every neighborhood in Escambia County to have an opportunity to be an A+ neighborhood, because they were actually involved in the actions that affected them and their lives. So my candidacy is historic. I'm running very strong, and I think I was grossly underestimated. But what they didn't understand is the power of relationships that I have developed over the period of 32 years in law enforcement. And being a person that's willing to listen to people from all backgrounds and listen attentively and understand where we are the same and where we may be different, and how we all have need of safety and security. I think I was able to pull together a platform that would be that would transcend party lines. So I'm looking forward to taking the reins. I'm out at the county fair right now, the Pensacola State Fair, and I've been getting people from all different parts coming up to my booth and letting me know that they're supporting this change that's much needed and been long time needed in Escambia County. So your discussion about history, there's going to be some new pages in history, but there also going to be some great opportunities to turn some things around that have traditionally hit brick walls in the past.
And Chief, if I don't know if the title still applies, but excellent. Chief Alexander, if I saw that your platform had a lot to do with changing the relationship between police and the community, to ensure that mutual respect is at the core of it. And I'm just curious how you have found that message to resonate, across different communities, and how just in general what your experience campaigning has been.
Well, that has been the life and the breath of my campaign, because you'd be surprised how many people that you probably peg, you say, well, based on their partisanship, they would not be receptive. But everybody's concerned about their safety. They're concerned about the future of their neighborhoods. They're also concerned about the safety of their families and their children. And there are a lot of things that are kind of swept away when you're able to focus on a lot of issues that are very divisive. But the day you start bringing people together, you're going to find out that there are more commonalities. And when law enforcement takes the leadership role of creating those positive interactions with citizens, then you gain more support for law enforcement, and you're able to recruit and retain the type of people that will keep this going on. So we were able to do that. I had a short tenure as a chief of police, but I worked as a senior captain for 16 years. And I was able to bridge relationships across racial lines. And during a time when a lot of our surrounding agencies were getting pounded by the community, we actually had people in the community videotaping us doing things that were very praiseworthy. So I feel like this is something that allowed officers to have a lot of fun doing their job and see a lot of extrinsic rewards that come from community members as opposed to coming from your bosses. So, but we do have to give them praise and recognition, just like we have to also hold them accountable. So complaints went down, complaints against officers went down, and with the body camera having accountability piece added to it, they knew that there was some integrity behind what was being recorded. So integrity means a lot, and I think that's what I have over my opponent, is I work my career with integrity, no hidden agendas, no political payoffs. It's all about strictly professionalism and working with citizens in their neighborhoods where they are.
I've been talking to the cops around my parts and in Baltimore a lot, and I was wondering, are there any like specific policy harangues that you find are really getting in the way of the police force around there?
Well, I think not the lack of policy. I think most leaders are smart enough to have the appropriate policies in place. I think the level of accountability, lacks of supervision, is where a lot of agencies fail. They're not holding that small percentage of officers that will go out and break policies. So the exception becomes the rule. And any place, whether it's law enforcement or in other industry, when there's a lack of rules and the rules are there, but nobody have to go by them, then you're going to find the quality of work and the quality of performance will be diminished, and also the level of accountability is probably non-existent. So when you hold people accountable for what they've been trained to do, and you find out a lot of things they're doing, they're not trained to do it, and neither is it recommended in the professional environment of law enforcement, then when you find out when accountability is increased, trust is increased, and the level of acceptance from the community is increased. And that's a no-brainer. The research is in there, but a lot of leaders, because of political reasons and agendas, they don't embrace that, and they try to look for other ways to pacify the public.
I mean, I imagine it must also affect the morale of those on in the force that are adhering to the standards when they see that people that don't necessarily align themselves to what is the thing they're supposed to do aren't held accountable. Am I correct in that? Or?
Well, and one of the things I think, if you noticed, was that I think the legislator was looking at is the duty to intervene, and that's something that the whole agenda of the Black Lives Matter movement has taken the attention off of that and putting the attention on the rioting and the destroying property. But I think we got to be wise about it. Sometimes you can allow argument that you're not going to win at its face what it is. It can be distractive. It can take the attention off of the issue that we really need in place, which is the duty to intervene. Coming from a federal government level, it will make states all compliant, that they have a duty to intervene. And when they have a duty to intervene, that means leaders have to be accountable when officers are there and they see something done wrong and they won't do anything about it. So I think that's something that is a challenge for the American public. But I believe if we could get a lot of distractive things out of the way and start talking about the business at hand, I believe that nationwide you'll see some accountability raised at the government level, and it will be a trickling down effect to local governments, because that means they cannot get government funding if they're not in compliance with those type of mandates.
Wow, love to see that. And Captain Alexander, actually, John in the YouTube comments brought up the militarization of the police. Do you have thoughts on that? Military grade gear being sent to, small town and city police departments, and kind of the what's been happening there, what you've seen in your career. What do you think about all that?
Well, about probably 8 years ago, there was an influx influx of a lot of military equipment into law enforcement because it was surplus. But here's the thing about it: it puts a humongous strain on your staff to track this stuff, and if you're not using it, it's got to be maintained. So most of the time, the presence of the type of military equipment that people are complaining about have already been turned back over to the federal government. However, there are some equipments that agencies will invest in that can be used for more than just what the thought is. So, the idea of just taking everything that's military out of policing is not the best idea, because as long as bad guys are going to have superior weaponry, you're going to ask, it's like asking an officer to go in with a cap gun and stop a bank robbery, and the guy got a loaded AK-47. So you don't want your police agencies to be ill prepared, but I think it goes back to what I said and what I've been running on, is you got to hold people accountable. A lot of these vehicles that have been used by the military, they've been used to rescue people from inclement weathers, disasters, and things like that. So when you take away that, and now you got to sit here and watch people die in the massive numbers because you don't have what it needs to rescue them or to protect them, then it makes the argument, kind of mute after the fact. But I think it's requiring leaders to be forward thinking, and we got to be honest, and we got to be accountable. And that's why I say, if you're voting for somebody now, you need to hold that person accountable for being, a progressive minded, to understand that I may need a military vehicle to go in and rescue a family that otherwise are going to drown waiting on conventional ways to do it. Because let's face it, our military do it when they go into other countries and they rescue people who they're moving to safety. So to deprive your community of something that they could have access to under the Department of Homeland Security, I think we're tying our hands trying to make ourselves think we're safe, when in fact what we're doing is we're making ourselves more of a vulnerable target for those who are going to go out and break the law, and they're not going to play games when they do it. So that's why I say you got to balance your approach with issues like that, because what will happen is, because it's a politically charged issue, you get pulled from one extreme end to the other. But I always talk about balancing, because when we understand that this tool is not for you to go out here and terrorize neighborhoods, I want to take our SWAT team out into the community during a parade so that the children get to interact with them in their full gear. Because you know what? It starts to let them know they are not an enemy of mine, they're a friend of mine. So if you want friends, you got to learn to present yourself to be friendly. But but we don't want any mistakes to be made. We are police officers, and we're there to serve and to protect the public. And when I protect the public, I want everything I need to do that. So you have to present law enforcement in a positive light, and the positive contact theory says that the more opportunities you create for citizens and law enforcement to have a positive interaction, you remove those barriers and those isms and schisms that keep people from being trusted. So it takes smart policing, and that's what is required of us here in the 21st century.
Word. So much word. I do have a question for you. You said you've been in law enforcement for 32 years. I tried. As a black man in law enforcement, particularly now, how do you face that argument? Like, what are you doing in this place where, this was obvious, this, used to be the role of slave catchers and so on and so forth. How do you sort of combat that argument?
Well, first of all, it's going to take time. And the other thing is, I got away from arguments. One of the things I realized, when you argue with a person, some people, they just live to argue. And they don't grow from it. They never accomplish anything. So what you have to do is you have to stop arguing with folks. And there are enough people out here that really wants to see some things change. I had to go through, as a young black supervisor, I had to go through the supervising officers in predominantly white neighborhoods and having people come back and question my decision making. But when my decision making was consistent And the officers that worked with me and the supervisors that worked alongside me understood my level of competency. They came back and told me, hey man, they were questioning you. And so I had to go through those challenges. But a lot of times people got to be taught that I wasn't there because, you know, I was just trying to counter this stigma of token. No, I was a bona fide supervisor that worked my way from entry level up. So I knew my job, and I know my job to this day. So what I learned how not to do is let somebody bait me into an argument that once you get to talking to them after the first couple of minutes, you know that this person feels strongly about what they feel strongly about, and you're not going to change it. But what I can do is go to the next person, and while this person is still arguing, we can show them that things can change, and we can give them the proofs, and they can sit there and still argue. That person will argue until their time is up on this earth. But when you start showing people that things can change, then you'll have people saying, I want that in my neighborhood. You know, you get young African Americans saying, I want to be a police officer because I want to protect my neighborhood. So this is where the hard work is done. But what I'm telling you, I'm not just telling you something that's in theory. I'm telling you something I've already done, and I know it works, and it'll work even bigger in Escambia County, Florida.
No.
That's great.
Very dope.
Folks can go to davidalexanderforsheriff.com to support the candidacy of our guest for sheriff. Again, that's davidalexanderforsheriff.com, and you can see that on the screen.
Absolutely. And we're excited because there's a lot of people waiting for an opportunity to take part in this. It's all inclusive. I have to be a sheriff for the people who voted for me as well as the one who did not. And so either way, whether they voted for me or not, they win when I win.
Nice.
Well, I have a question for you, Chief.
Okay.
So the other night, I was sitting outside and I saw these, police cars just kind of block. Well, I'll say this: I was sitting outside and I heard a noise, and it sounded like somebody in the vacant house across the street was like going through something, right? And then later on, I heard all the police sirens, and they stopped at the end of the street, on either end of the street. They blocked traffic, and clearly you could tell they were looking for someone. And it was dark outside because my neighborhood has, as you know, really poor lighting. So I pulled out my camera. I wasn't gonna post it on Facebook because I didn't want to interrupt like the search, right? But I heard the guy, I heard it. And they're not bringing out all these K9s and cop cars for somebody who stole a candy bar. This I know, right?
Right.
And, there's a lot of old people in the neighborhood, a lot of older people who live by themselves, a lot of single moms, single parents in the neighborhood. And whatever was going on, it really made me think about, how dangerous is this person? Because clearly they are looking. And then I heard them next door to me. I don't know what's going on. Right? So it's like you can say we definitely don't want, and this gets back to what you were saying about balance. You definitely want to make community policing. We don't want there to be any kind of police misconduct. But at the end of the day, when those are during that moment, I would not have wanted somebody's grandma to be by themselves.
Right.
And I would have wanted somebody's grandma to have an officer that looked like their grandchild.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing about it. I've worked around a lot of white officers that, man, they went to the barbecues in the neighborhood. The kids up knowing them. And what I'm saying is, this is where when you get officers emerge into communities where they know the community they're policing, I guarantee you, they're going to know that so-and-so's grandmother lived right there. They're going. When I went out on calls, and I worked on every end of town, I knew white people and black people who had parents that were aging that lived in certain places. And when you hear the call goes down, you know if it's a burglary in progress, you had an idea of who might live in that area that might be by themselves. So we had this thing we used to say a lot. We say, you got to police the neighborhood like you live in it. You got to police the neighborhood like your children live in it. You got to police that neighborhood like your grandma live in it. So do you want your grandma to be terrified? No. So you're going to police that neighborhood to make sure that they're safe and secure. And that's where ownership, and that's why I say getting more young Black Americans, boys and girls involved in law enforcement, all you do is minimize the likelihood of these things going wrong, because it creates a consciousness. And that's a consciousness we need to grow, not just in our community, but in America, period. And I believe right now with the things that happened with George Floyd, there's an increased consciousness across the board. People saying they want things to change. So, but changes take time and it challenges thinking. So we're going to be changing mindsets. But this is where those stories need to be blasted on Facebook. You know, I remember the time when we had an officer and his trainee that stopped and threw football with a couple of kids after they handled the domestic service. They were actually there with the sheriff department. The sheriff department got in their car and left. These two city officers stood out, and their mother from the door videotaped this whole thing and put it on Facebook. So now here's the thing: those officers just did what they would naturally do when they see somebody. You know, one of them I knew was a Alabama fan, so anytime he see a football, I mean, hair starts. But he took the opportunity to throw a couple of footballs with two young kids. But what he didn't know is those kids' aunt was killed in a tragic accident by a DUI driver. So that impact, they talked about that for months. Their mother blasted it on Facebook because it was her sister that got killed in the DUI manslaughter case. But the thing about it, you never know what a child has been exposed to that will give them that negative feeling towards law enforcement. But to be exposed or reintroduced to the positivity, I mean, it changes their life because they'll never forget it. And the more we increase these opportunities for these positive interactions, you're going to see mindsets change. Now, it doesn't take away crime and the fact that you got to deal with crime. And sometimes the ugly thing about it is we got to go in there and we got to take care of business. But if you spend a lot of time building those relationships, then you really police your neighborhood at the speed of trust. And I got that from Stephen Covey, who wrote the book called The Speed of Trust. When trust is high, you don't need a whole lot of money. But if you notice, when trust is low, you got to come up with all kinds of grants. You got to come up with millions of dollars to satisfy people because they don't trust what you're saying and what you're doing. So we police our neighborhoods at the speed of trust.
You know, I had a cop interaction last night, actually. There was this lady in the street who was just going off. I do a lot to call and try to make sure the alleys and everything stay cleaned up when there's a big trash mess. And I don't know what was going on with her, but she was just throwing the trash cans everywhere, like littering all up in the street. And I see her and I'm like see her right out of this window here. I'm thinking to myself, all right, you know, she's going off. Maybe she can't get in her place or something. I'm going to make a call in the morning and get that cleaned up. But she over like a half an hour to an hour, she's like keeps getting more trash. And I'm like, I can't just sit here and let her continue to trash stuff. So I go out there and just talk with her for a minute. I just like, she had a big cardboard box in another bag. I'm like, ma'am, you're gonna have to put that down and stop littering the street. And she was a bit nonsensical. Like she said she lived in this place right there and like she couldn't get in. And I'm like, well, that's not really a reason to trash the street, is it, ma'am? And she keeps kind of repeating the same sort of deal. She's not directly answering our questions. And by this time, there's a guy in the music shop that is working late night and happens to be around, so he knows what's going on here. And we're not really getting clear answers from this lady, and we don't want to just leave her there alone because she just ruined the street. And she keeps kind of walking up and down and sort of just, you know, getting close to people and looking at them. And I go ahead and just make the call. Like, I'm going to go ahead and call the cops and see if we can get this lady some help and make sure she doesn't like continue to litter these streets. And I stick around for when the cops come and, you know, see what happens. They're just getting hip to issue too. So I end up sticking around to ask the lady questions, and they can sort of see how she interacts with those questions. And I'm talking to the cops, trying to figure out, like, you know, she just littered. We don't want to see this lady go to jail. I'm sure she's having a very weird night right now. Is there a shelter that we could get her in? Honestly, I felt bad calling the cops, but you know, they thankfully had a number for a shelter that they could call. They had a couple in mind. They actually were able to schedule a trash cleanup in the morning. And what I'm trying to get to is, first of all, that seems a lot for them to handle. I wish there was somebody else to call. I didn't want to have to call the cops, but they tend to be the people that facilitate all of these things. Is there any way in the future that you see some of those responsibilities getting reallocated? Because I think that's a big part of the reason why our police force is stressed out in this country.
Yeah, well, and that's where, you know, you have to be careful when you start talking about redefining law enforcement, because politicians will take what your words and say, okay, he's talking about defunding. We're not talking about defunding, but there's some duties, obviously, that you see law enforcement officers get stuck with because it's hours. It's during time that most folks that are responsible for handling stuff like that, you have to bring them to the resource, whereas resources should be dispensable into the community where they're needed the most. And that's what I believe that's going to change, because policing has to stop being the dumping ground for all of your social problems. And then they're expecting them to be resolved by police officers who are trained to serve and protect the public, but not do everybody else's job. So that's where that's where the hard conversations are going to take place. But also in community policing, that's what of your partnerships will take you above and beyond. There are some partnerships that have proven to be effective. You have caseworkers and social workers that work in conjunction with patrol shifts, but there needs to be a team of people that can be called out for a non-criminal mental health case, which you described the mental health case. I guarantee you there's a reason why this woman's life is spiraling out of control. It may have been a continuation over a longer period of time. But however, police don't have the time nor the resources to really address her problem and solve it. So they may have to come out over and over for this lady. But that's where a trauma-informed community can better orchestrate their storehouse of resources to meet the needs of people and not have to get police involved. But now, of course, when it gets violent or potentially violent, then you have to call the police. But it would be nice to have a non-law enforcement number that you can call and say, hey, can y'all get this lady checked out? Because the other thing is you got to have places where people can be placed to get the help that they need. And the question usually politicians, well, who's going to pay for that? Well, we pay for it in many ways that we don't understand we're paying for it. So, but that's where, like I said, elected officials got to make some serious decisions. And at the end of the day, I think they're worried about being reelected rather than trying to solve problems. So I was just glad that they were responsive and that they knew about resources that they could channel her to. Because when you get in some small towns, you got to understand we got 18,000 law enforcement agencies in America. And all of them don't have the same resources. And I guarantee you, all of them are not properly staffed to respond to the problems that we have in society. So I was glad to know that they were able to at least channel her to some resources.
Yeah, I stuck around. They let her into the car in a nice way. Her name was Mrs. Graham. I know that she lives on this block. I'm not sure if she lives on this block anymore. We'll see what's going on with Miss Graham. You
have to follow in with your legislative body of your city and county, because a lot of times how they choose to handle it determines whether law enforcement even stand a chance when they have to respond.
Will do.
Great point. Yeah, getting a lot of great feedback, by the way, in the comments about, seeing your commitment to your job and, and how important that experience is, and recognizing the deep and important work that needs to be done here and that, and that is underway.
You got to take the politics out of it.
That's
Yep.
for damn sure.
Yeah.
That is for damn sure.
Yeah.
I wish I had more stories like that, but I do my best not to call the cops too often.
Well,
So another quick question for you, Chief. How's the campaign going?
Actually, we're running very strong. You know, the pandemic, I sat down with some people because I really didn't want to have to run a political campaign, but that's the only way I can get in a position. So I had to sit down with some people to get some pointers because I'm running a campaign for the first time. It's a lot different than sitting around for 30 years and watching politics and campaigns. But COVID brought in a new twist, and it leveled the playing field for me. My whole strategy has been boots on the ground, getting out and talking to people, taking the opportunity to serve and let them ask you questions. So I participate in a lot of food giveaways throughout the county. Even with the hurricane cleanup, we took that as an opportunity to talk to people, and I did. And people like the idea of being able to talk to a person rather than just looking at a bunch of political propaganda and TV ads. So that boots on the ground strategy worked real well. It is an intimidating environment for elections because a lot of people are not able to speak freely about what they feel and what they're going to support. So the old Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad worked very good for me in my campaign because I got strong support across party lines, and my opponent, which had 3 times the amount of money that I had to campaign, he's really they're really squirming. We're within the next 5 days of the election, and they're trying to come up with something else they can do to try to turn this election. Right now, I think the polls that have been taken pretty much will put me out ahead. People are coming by, they're honking their horns. We got car magnets on other people's cars. So people are calling and they're honking their horns. They're going on Facebook telling us they're voting for us. Their whole family is voting for us. The whole church is voting for us. And it's breaking down a lot of these traditional racial and social class walls that have existed in Escambia County for a long time. So I feel very confident. I'm ready to start assembling the transition team and making some great things happen in the sheriff's department.
Nice. No.
That's amazing. What's the first thing you want to do?
Well, we got to set the tone for communications, and certainly the buzzword is to comply or say goodbye. We're not going to tolerate the good old boy politics. We're not going to tolerate letting politics dictate what we should be doing as people hired by the public to serve and protect. So we're going to open up those channels of communication, make sure things that should be done is being done, and the things that should not be done, we're going to put a stop to it right away.
No.
That's great.
Very dope.
Well, we really appreciate your time, future Sheriff Alexander. And that's David Alexander for sheriff.com. We are going to keep talking to Tania Day here, but I know you have a lot to do. I see you at the fairgrounds. Thank you for joining us from your booth at the fairgrounds.
No problem. We're out here talking to people out here, and some like to come up and they're going to vote across their party lines, so they want to feel confident that they're doing the right thing. So having that face-to-face time gives them that opportunity. So it's worked well with us out here, and so we don't mind. That's what it's all about.
And Chief, I was surprised to see that you had so much Republican support. Being you're a registered Democrat and we're in Northwest Florida.
I've been saying it from day one. Nobody believed me, but I bet you my opponent has done some opinion polls, and those polls are telling them that, and so that's why they're not publicizing it. So I don't look for mainstream media to follow me on that because, again, this is the will of the people, not the will of the establishment.
Nice.
Heck yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, and I appreciate you guys giving me this opportunity, and certainly I hope that we can have an opportunity to talk to you again and talk about the first 100 days, and it'll be eventful, but I'm ready to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
Let's definitely do that. We're putting that on the calendar, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah. I got about this council now.
Yeah, you have a city council woman that's probably going to be actively involved in what we're doing as well, because there comes a time when everybody has to chime in on what they expect from public safety.
Well, you live in my district, though, Chief.
Yeah, I know your district.
Right, so you're in D5, so that makes it great for me. Your police chief lives around the corner.
Yeah,
as it ought to be.
So it's going to be fun because the city and the county are going to work together like never before.
This is great. This is great.
How is the council race going for you now?
Well, I think yes, though. Thank you, Chief Alexander. I'll see you later. Thank you for your time.
Have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know he lived in D5. Faith.
Right. Actually, he lives next to Miss Frazier's house.
Oh, really? So he lives in like a few blocks away from my parents.
Right. So before, I just learned this not too long ago when he shared the story. So after Chappie James retired, he bought a lot next to his sister because he was going to build his retirement home there. But, Chappie died like 3 weeks after retirement.
Right. Is that what became that park?
No, it's just next door to Miss Frazier's house. So Chappie James, and y'all, who we're talking about, it was a man whose family came from the church. He became the first Black 4-star general in the Air Force.
That's who they recently named the bridge after. Right,
and he was a Tuskegee Airman and all that good stuff. So had this excellent military career, and he retired, and then like 3 weeks later he died.
Oh.
So he had, you all know who the Tuskegee Airmen were, right? So like I said, he had a stellar career, and he passed away. So the lot was just sitting there, and he was going to move back home, and Chief Alexander built his house.
Wow.
And then later on, built his
that's
house there.
literally like walking distance from my parents' house.
Right,
right.
Small town with a lot of connections, and that's in District 5. So, and I guess that kind of gets to my point, because District 5 is a phenomenal district in the city. It's really diverse. It's in that part of the district, the part I was just talking about, you had a neighborhood that they call Mortgage Hill, because that was the only place Black people of a certain income could get mortgages. With redlining and all that, they weren't giving us mortgages everywhere. So what ended up happening was in this section of the neighborhood is formerly called East Hill, but the section that's in D5 is nicknamed Mortgage Hill. It's affectionately known as Mortgage Hill because of that. And you had a lot of the educators and principals, or educators, administrators, doctors, attorneys, all that. And ultimately, most of our generation is the first generation that has not done better financially than its parents for the most part. And what we started to see in the last generation was, as the people get older, their children grow up, and then they have to leave town for equal opportunities or just better opportunities. So although you have all these civil rights heroes and, folks who were prominent in the African-American community living in this neighborhood, their children couldn't go higher. So very often what we saw is them having to go to Atlanta and Houston. People in small towns love going to some Atlanta, right? People in small towns love going to some Philadelphia. Don't they, Dolio?
I had to go where the paper was.
Exactly. You had to go where the paper was. So, but here it is. His family, like his grandmother, she was a librarian at a library that was the segregation era library. But you can only get so high, and then, your children had to leave to go somewhere else, because again, remember, y'all, this is still the South, and every place isn't like Atlanta. So that's what we saw happen there. So of course the demographics are changing, but still, regardless of how diverse it's become, I'm still representing everyone, right? So everybody, and what we end up seeing is people who are more in tune with that history and like the place because of it. So it's still heavily Democratic. And now more Republicans are coming into the area. But the cool part about being in a nonpartisan race is that everybody wants streetlights. Nobody wants flooding, right? Everybody wants better programs at the community center. So I'm fortunate in that I don't have to battle some of the politics that people in the partisan races have to stand behind, because for them it comes to like, are you, for abortion or not, right? But like for me, it's like, I'm for programs at the park, right? So I don't have to those same considerations, thank goodness, because we know how chaotic things are getting on the state level, even the national level. So I'm glad that, number one, I'm glad I'm in a nonpartisan race. And secondly, that because of the issues, because I'm just the type of person who is pretty moderate and kind of love everybody and sees all sides kind of thing, I am more equipped at it. In fact, I know I'm more equipped at it because I had to do something with our museum. I work in museums, and come to find out, our flagship museum in the city is named after a Klansman. So he was not just a regular Klansman.
Yeah,
he was
the Grand
the Grand Wizard, right? He was like
he was the exalted Cyclops, which is like
the exalted
county.
One of those Dungeons and Dragons sounding names.
Yeah, he's like basically makes him the county leader of the clan.
Mm-hmm. Right. So as I was on a Zoom call with like the family, I was like, you know what? I really know how to work well with others. Because this conversation is going great. Yeah. So I know if I can work with the grandchildren of a Klansman.
Sure.
I can work with somebody voting for Donald Trump. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Chief Alexander mentioned the importance of getting people to understand some of the common ground that they have and wanting those things like streetlights and stuff that they may have, get around the perception that they have of being divided and being so different, and getting them to understand that they've got their agendas actually overlap a lot, and they're in the same boat more than they realize.
They do, because you know what? I think people are told how to think. Mm-hmm. And as long as people are being told how to think and they can't create their own perception of the world, because they're constantly inundated with what other people are telling them how to feel about an issue. Sometimes I think that number one, it leads people to vote against their self-interest. Mm-hmm. And it also just allows people to let distractions become their focus. And now with the state of things in the world, as we see people really claiming, everybody's having a movement now, right? Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants equal rights. That's beautiful. That's what we're supposed to be doing. But I think people politicize folks' basic humanity. Like they politicize everything. I went into a restaurant today, and just to show how I'm affected by it, I went into a restaurant today, and nobody had on masks, and I was like, "Oh my God, no masks!" Right? So, but I admit, I was letting the politicization. What am I saying, y'all?
We get it.
You really got D5 on the background.
Yes, I do. This highlighted in green is D5.
That's cool. Yeah, so I was not applying masks to be politicized, right?
Yeah, right over there is my folks' house.
Cool. I see it.
Right over by Holy Cross.
I should not have, because it shouldn't have been like, oh, these people, must be this or they must come from that. It really shouldn't have been that. It's just people who have collectively agreed that they don't mind getting sick.
Yeah, it's a shame that, it's not even just about them getting sick. It's about, because you can be asymptomatic from these things. So it's like they're also saying that they don't mind getting other people sick. Mm-hmm. 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 And it's a shame that something so basic and has to have a political slant to it. Mm-hmm. It's like when you argue about, police brutality or just injustice of any kind of, setting when it comes to disenfranchised communities, they try to make it be some sort of political thing when that's not even a political thing. That's a human rights thing. Like, human rights should not have a party affiliation.
Right.
Caring for each other too.
Like whatever party that exists should all be for human rights.
I will say in the diner's defense, though, that I have not yet learned how to eat through a mask. So
it's very simple.
That was a good point, because if you're going to go to a restaurant, you clearly want to eat. You don't have to worry about it.
Right.
But so that's what I meant. When I went into the space, I was like, look at all these people. They're just not wearing any mask. Oh my God. But then, like I said, I thought about it. Like, oh yeah, they're at a restaurant. They're eating. That's kind of how this works.
Oh yeah.
I don't know though. I feel like there's actually a lot to be said for, you lift your mask, you take a bite, you put your mask back. You can chew quite competently with a mask on. It's not like we're saying take a drink through your mask, but lift your mask, take the drink, and put your mask back. That's not actually, it's really not asking a lot. I think you were totally right to be concerned.
But hold on. When you put the mask back on, you're chewing, so your mouth is closed.
Well, yeah, but you're breathing out your nose.
We got to get some experts in to work this out. We'll figure it out. I think it's true that we do get told a lot of stereotypes and a lot of stuff that's not letting us sort of see each other's humanity, where, based on our region or our race or something, we get ideas about, the other folks, like they've got it good and I've got it bad or something, because we have the distance to think that something else is going on there. And I think that a lot of poor white folks and poor black folks don't realize how much there is, that they have the same agenda, really, and the same things have been happening to take advantage of them for so many years. And yet they're kind of worried about whether those folks over there are getting something instead of us. And that's just like shooting yourself in the foot.
Right. I mean, and that's a reason why so many of these issues are allowed to persist, is because they allow these minute perceived differences to keep the people that could unify to overcome these situations. Mm-hmm. They keep them fighting against each other, so they don't focus on, fixing what's actually affecting them. Because then okay, as long as we keep these guys focusing on each other, they won't focus on us.
Mm-hmm. Right. So in my district, which is already pretty diverse, a group of business owners decided to put together what we're calling a Midtown Business League, and essentially just based off Booker T. Washington's model. But the cool thing about living in a city or in a district that's already diverse, you don't have the problem of, these people are in this chamber of commerce and these people are in this minority chamber of commerce. Like this, it just kind of already works. Mm. Because if you live here, you're in it. And the only requirement is that you just got to live in the district or live near the district. So it helps in that way. But we had to really find creative ways to make things inclusive from the start. And what parts of our community are built on inclusivity. So that's how we get to parks. So one of my plans, if I'm elected, is I want to make sure that one of the parks in the city, it doesn't have to be in my district, just a park in the city, gets funding to where it's not just ADA compliant, but outfitted for special needs children and disabled children and adults, right? So I was able to find a grant through Walt Disney, I think it is, that really builds playground equipment, but it'll have like the swings that are made for children in wheelchairs. Or usually in our parks here, there will be a track along the park, along the, y'all is late. It's the P word. It is so late. I'm so tired.
Right, the perimeter.
Yeah, I'm so sleepy. I don't know how sleepy I'm.
Yo, you've been putting in a lot of work in.
Campaigning, man.
Just say the John. We know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Right around the John.
I'm gonna drop initials and you fill in the blank. And so the way it works is that the children who use the walking sticks, like children who are blind children, can kind of how the stick taps along.
Right.
There was, just different things, because think about it. Okay, Chief just said he's at the fair. I know when I was little, I would go to the fair and it said you have to be this tall to ride.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that, okay, well, maybe I'm not this tall this year, but I'll be tall enough next year or the year after that. And then I can ride, and I would just get back on my little bumper cars or whatever that little thing is called, carousel or whatever. So, and wait till I can get on better rides. But imagine if that's always your experience. Like every time you go play, it's never outfitted for you to be able to get on that thing. So there should be something to where all of the playground equipment is accessible. And it's just not the part about the children, but also how the parents socialize, So it creates a sense of mutual benefit for parents in that community or who have children with those concerns. And we have to, because of COVID, we have to like reimagine how we want the world to look, right? And like how we're going to interact with the world. So before, we weren't considering how parents cope. But then when everybody got caught, had to stay in the house, we were able to have these kinds of thoughts about, well, I wonder how it is for people, now that everybody's doing school at home. I wonder how it is, especially me as a mom. I wonder how it is for parents who struggle with learning disabilities to teach their kids, because all parents automatically became teachers during the stay-at-home order. So I wonder how that's working. So as these questions rolled in my brain, it just kind of expanded to, when we go back outside, what do we want that experience to be, and how is it going to be better?
So thoughtful.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. That was a great answer.
I really want to hear like this inspiration from Booker T. Washington, because I've gotten in a couple of conversations over the years about just I feel like in schooling we harp on W.E.B. Du Bois's philosophy a lot and don't really dig into Booker T enough. So I want to hear how you're projecting that legacy.
Oh, well, I think I was talking about this the other day, that when I said something to the effect of, when it comes to arts and culture, I'm Du Boisian all day, but for business, I'm a Bookerite.
Yeah.
But what we know...
Does it have something to do with the fact that you're a Wildcat?
Probably, maybe a little bit. There are like 23 schools in the nation named after Booker T. Washington, but and there are no W.E.B. Du Bois high schools.
Yeah, I think
there's one.
I actually used to tutor at the Du Bois Academy.
Yeah, I think that's like new, right?
No, that was it's probably I think it started in the 80s. So.
Right. But all those schools like mine, founded in like 1916 and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think people, I've actually read the Booker T. Washington papers, and there's an interesting book that approaches Booker T as a Pan-Africanist for anybody who wants to explore that. It talks about how, even though he was doing things in the United States, what he was doing in Panama and the Caribbean, essentially he built Tuskegee, but the students not just built the school, but they built the bricks to build the school.
Wow.
And remember when I asked that man, how did you survive that boycott for 707 days? And he said, it's because we had our own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have your own stuff to survive. But from your basic, infrastructure, that's going to create a space for this level of, in the hierarchy of needs. At the top is self-actualization. And self-actualization is when you start getting into like how you express art and culture and your museums and all these things, right? So, but before we even get there, we're going to have some basic foundational needs met. And as someone who's always worked in museums, I know that if I were to open a museum tomorrow, it would close because we don't have proper sidewalks. we don't have the foundational things in place. I mean, our schools are being shut down left and right. So how are we even going to get to this part where people can express themselves and just like foster the humanities and get to a point of self-expression that doesn't always come from like trauma? So you get beautiful art because of this painful experience, but what does it look like to manifest art from just joy? And if you have certain things in place, then you put your community in a position to where that can happen. And it doesn't have to be this response to terror. Yes, murals are beautiful. Murals about how we overcame are always beautiful because that's a beautiful story. But I want to know, how do you dream? And what would that look like if you were able to express yourself based on how you dream?
That pause just needed to be a little bit pregnant here because that was, man, I felt those words.
I think what you're trying to say is you're on board with our platform of everybody gets a free helicopter.
You know what? I was 8th grade student council president, and I think I like promised like free pizza on Fridays or something like that.
Ooh.
But I think we pulled it off though. We pulled it off.
We were this close to a helicopter. This close.
Man,
I can't get you helicopters.
No.
I can get you
I guarantee you next time we have that opportunity, we're gonna jump on it.
Jumping on it.
We've been kicking ourselves about that helicopter for how many years now? 2 years now.
At least 2 years. Yep.
By the way, what is this book about Booker T, the Pan-Africanist?
Oh man, it's by Dr. Wright. Let me look it up because I have it on my shelf. Booker T. It really addresses Booker T from a Pan-African perspective. It's called.
Yeah, but not a lot of analysis of him.
It's called it's by Dr. Tyreen Wright. You see it?
Yeah. Let's see. Is that Wright spelled with a W?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. I see it.
The making of
Booker T. Washington and African. The making of a Pan-Africanist.
So it says it's a paradigm shifting book about Washington's evolution as a Pan-Africanist and his clandestine role in African affairs. Yeah, Booker T, you didn't always know what he was doing. You got to read the Booker T. Washington papers. It's like, what? The book takes a rare look into Booker T. Washington's private affairs through his personal papers. The man many consider an iconic accommodationist, pacifist, and Uncle Tom had a clandestine life as a very progressive Pan-Africanist who wielded measurable power in the world of African affairs. When out of public view, Booker T. Washington could be found propagandizing against the atrocities taking place in the Congo Free State under King Leopold, denouncing colonial domination in South Africa, serving as a key negotiator in the Liberian crisis, tactfully orchestrating the demise of the African exclusion measure designed to target and exclude African Black persons, immigration from the Caribbean, Central and South America. I think I touched on that a little bit more, and establishes that Booker T. Washington belongs amongst the canon of Pan-Africanists that shaped the 20th century. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
This book, I'm getting this book right now.
Yeah, add it to the book club list.
This is
Yeah, I find it cool that at least 3 of us just purchased it like a second ago.
I would like to see the rest of this poster behind you.
Oh yeah, it's really cool looking.
Yes, this is. So there's an artist named Panhandle Slim.
What?
So this is
Handle Slim.
Heck yeah.
That's a great line of Western shirts as well. I wonder if there's a connection.
Well, I'm sorry.
I own a number of Panhandle Slim Western shirts, so I wonder if he got the name from the old Western shirt company.
What? Oh, that's not Panama Slim?
No, Panhandle Slim is the Western one.
Oh, okay. Well, if you Google him, all of his stuff looks like this, right? He did one for Biden and Harris. He did one for Stacey Abrams. But he makes these cool, quirky This is his style. Like if you see this, you know this is the Panhandle Slim just based on the style. So
Really good.
I'm the candidate who pushes arts and culture. So I decided to reach out to him and ask him to do my sign. And he agreed. And because everybody loves Panhandle Slim, they know what this is.
Did you have to pay something for that? Because I got politicians I want to throw his way.
I'm not speaking on y'all. No, I'm gonna get this. You gotta get them paid.
Okay.
And can I ask also about the pictures behind you?
Oh no, that's just I think that's just some black men.
Like if you look on the back of the picture, it just says some black man.
Right. No, actually,
so your man's in them, and
you know, your uncle
and the young bull.
The preacher, there's the little boy. You know, he has a Bible.
So they appear to be of wildly different sizes.
I think that's just the tilt of the camera, I think. And then I have some African masks over here. And then, of course, I have my alma mater.
Hey.
The FAMU Rattler. You got it upside down.
Indeed.
It's okay. I'll read it.
Oh, sorry. Huh?
No, I said you had the pennant upside down.
Oh, no, I just think it was the screen. Yeah, I'm doing this from my phone.
Yeah.
Y'all know it's voting. The election day is November 3rd. I'm just talking crazy. I don't even know. I'm just floating.
Hey, we appreciate you making time for a phone call.
So
much. In the middle of a campaign, we're honored to talk to you. So we know it's hard work out there trying to get everybody behind you.
Yeah, we've got your website up. We've had it up this whole time. TENIADE.com. That's the place to go, right, to support your campaign.
Right. Well, I can't accept donations anymore, but what you can do is just share. Tell if you know. I don't know. Y'all don't know anybody in Pensacola, Florida, but
I know a lot of people in Pensacola.
Well, yeah, you know. I know what.
But everybody I know has already voted for you. I've been talking to her. I was like, yeah, you know, we got too many ideas. She's like, yeah, we already voted for her.
Yeah, you got
we voted for Alexander too.
Nice.
Like, all right,
that's awesome. I know what you all can do is put it on your schedule to get to Pensacola at some point.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we've been trying to do that since we got started. Really, it was more just getting us booked down there. I would love to play at Vinyl or the Fairground even.
The Fairground,
especially
now
during the COVID times. I would love to play at the Fairgrounds. Yes. You know, we all get us some candy, some cotton candy.
What else they have? What do they have?
Corn dogs and
funnel cakes.
Oh, funnel cakes. Oh, you're speaking my language.
More recent phenomenon in Pensacola. I never really. First time I ever had a funnel cake was up north.
Well, you make your own beignets.
I think funnel cakes are just the northern version of beignets. I just knew beignets all my life.
Yeah. We that was, I think, beignets. But I think the closest thing to a funnel cake as far as carnival food I would get would be the elephant ears.
We have those. We have those too. It's just a difference of whether it's a solid sheet, basically, or
ours are a
drizzle.
solid sheet.
I just want to be clear here. Like, we want to make it down to Pensacola, but we prefer not to be paid in food. Just,
Oh, I mean, you ain't have to worry about food.
All the beignets.
You come to Pensacola, you gonna get fed.
Yeah, you can pay me in beignets. We're cool.
Yeah,
we're cool.
Hopefully, yeah.
No, actually, I spoke to the people at Gallery Night, and we're starting back next year, I assume. But we'll see. I'm trying on my end. I'd love to see you all. I sent all of your work. It's just really a matter of the outside opening back up.
Yeah, we'll get it together. We'll make it happen.
Yeah, especially when
and congratulations on your chart-topping song.
Thank you.
But that's the album.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the album?
Number one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I thought that was a song. Oh my goodness.
That was for the album. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely want to get them down there because I've been promising them to take everybody fishing.
That's important. If they don't build up all the waterfront.
But we got the boat.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we reopened Bruce's Beach. Bruce's Beach was a beach in downtown Pensacola during segregation. It was the Black Beach. Because, here, of course, we got to separate the water.
Yeah.
Right?
Separate the beach even. Is it?
Separate the beach. Everybody can't use the same water. So
hey, I mean, they separated the graveyards even. So
right.
I don't want no colors in my ocean.
By the way, if they're thinking of building up your waterfront, I would take a look at how the waterfront was built up in DC and Baltimore and Fells Point. I think they'd be, I'm not sure how they're trying to build it up, but taking a look at how it is in those two places might give you some good context.
No,
thank you.
Maybe look at more like how Amsterdam is doing it.
Yeah, look at how Amsterdam is doing.
Look at how Amsterdam is doing
looking, Nobody wants to see a bunch of skyscrapers on your waterfront. That's just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Excuse me, my cat's about to get a hairball up.
Breaking news here on the Gangstagrass live stream.
Yes, and a reminder, we will be here on election night, as will Pharaoh's cat. That's 9 p.m. to midnight Eastern. If you're listening now, you get a little heads up that we're going to start a little bit early, so feel free to come in for the pre-show. And it's going to be a new kind of election night, a feel-good, we'll have election results such as they are.
Feel all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
All the feelings.
You're going to feel.
Yeah,
there will be feeling going on.
And this has been shared. This broadcast has been shared to a number of Pensacola-based socials. So if you tuned in from getting exposed to that, and you have not yet gone out to the polls, don't forget to do so.
Right, early voting is still until the 31st, and then back to November 3rd.
All right, so that's tomorrow.
That's right.
So,
right.
So if you get out there tomorrow, get out there tomorrow.
So what are they saying? What is the world saying Florida is going to do about the presidential race?
I've seen all kinds of things.
Yeah, toss up.
One way or the other.
Well,
I will not believe anything until the votes have been counted.
One way or the other. There's only two ways.
Were folks able to re-enfranchise the ex-felons that had served their time?
They're still fine. They still have to pay fees and all that good stuff, which is why there have been several.
That's what it is, the poll tax.
Exactly. It's
basically several organizations are
entirely against the 24th Amendment.
Right. But I know a few entities came in with some pretty big donations to try to pay off as many fees as possible. So hopefully we got a lot of people that vote back that way.
I definitely.
Hopefully. So when I saw, I met someone who got their voting rights restored, and I interviewed a woman in her 90s, and I asked her how did they respond to the poll taxes back in her days. And because she registered to vote in the 40s, and I think the poll tax in Florida ended in the 30s, so it was around her lifetime, so she remembered it. But I mean, her parents' lifetime. Well, 90, yeah. So she remembers it, and she said that essentially they would just have to pay the poll tax, and they paid the poll tax for someone else. So that's what we have to do. We have to pay the poll tax for someone else.
Now, is that?
I mean, I did. I threw some money at the effort.
Me too. Since elections are local, is there a way for example, a city council to say, people who are in Pensacola do not have to have their fines and fees paid before they get their vote, or does that absolutely have to be done at the state level?
Right, we don't have that kind of. I wish.
Yeah, I believe it's at the state level. Which is because of the Secretary of State of the state, which sounds very recursive.
But I tell you all, who's my representatives are I saw you one of them, Matt Gates. I know you know that name.
Right. So
Oh yeah, we've been donating to Phil Ur.
That's why I've been donating. I donated to Phil Ur's campaign too, because I want to make sure.
Yep, I have a weekly donation to Phil Ur. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I vote for the candidate that doesn't have several mugshots.
That seems easy.
Does narrow it down.
Very simple.
How hard is that?
No, I just ask what they're for, though. You know, depending on what they're for, that might get my vote or lose my vote.
Good point. All right, I see that. I see that.
Let's just say that Matt Gates's mugshots are for being an instance of Florida man.
This man went to
that might get my vote.
In the gas mask. Did you see the picture of him? He had on like a gas mask, like one of the old time, you know, miners mask. I don't know, whatever it is. But
are you my mummy?
It's like, you know, what are you doing?
Yeah, he can't.
In a mockery of this whole pandemic.
Well, right, and especially since that totally defeats the purpose, because gas masks have exhaust. All that's doing is possibly maybe protecting himself, probably not even that, but certainly not protecting anyone else.
Yeah, I don't think his intention was protection of anything. It was mostly just a gesture of you know, how absurd of a person he is.
It was just theatrical.
Yeah. Yeah, I just find it very fascinating that I've never seen him look lucid.
That's a problem.
Like, I haven't seen not a single video, a single photo. And a lot of this is footage of him doing supposedly his job. And I'm like,
but the crazy thing is, everybody from back home who went to school with him, Dolio, everybody who went to school with him, like high school with him, they said he was normal.
That's wow.
Okay, I'm just gonna
What school did he go to?
Niceville, I want to say.
When you need to have multiple people confirming how normal you are,
you probably weren't normal.
You're probably not that normal.
Yo, if that means you was like, yo, if anybody asks you, I was normal.
But also, you've seen it when they interview the neighbors of the serial killer. It's always like, oh, we didn't know. He seemed so normal.
Yeah, he didn't kill any of us.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm good.
You know what's funny?
That was funny.
What's funny is that I went to school with the guy who was governor of Puerto Rico before the people rose up against him.
Oh, you told me about that, dude.
Yeah, and I was like, you know, we didn't even like him then.
Like, you know what? Yeah. I knew you was gonna lose that job, bro.
I was like, wait a minute. Oh, that's the guy? It's like as soon as I found, because I wasn't really, you know, I don't live in Puerto Rico, so I didn't quite pay attention to who was governor at the time. And then I saw stuff was happening. Like, I was like, oh snap, that's the dude who lived next door that nobody liked.
What?
We're coming off of a generation.
Get elected in the first place.
Say what?
How do you get elected in the first place?
Elected was also quite young as far as governors are concerned.
Well, Dolio, it takes the brother Costa to tell stories going to private school with Donald Trump Jr.
Yo, I still owe him a track. He sent me the track. I still owe him a verse for it, but I'll still get it to him. I've just been occupied.
Yeah, you have to do that. He's talented.
Yeah, he's got some pretty dope stuff. Yeah, we have some pretty nice discussions from time to time. I even exposed him to my sweet potato pie recipe.
Well, are you gonna bring some home?
Why do I have to bring it?
Yeah, you're gonna have to make it there.
Got it from?
Anything
you know where to get it
brought,
from.
we'd eat on the way.
You know where to get it from. Who you think I got the recipe from?
Oh, somebody. Okay, so yeah. I'll go.
That's my mama's recipe.
Well, I'll go get some. Okay, so lovely people. I'm my mind has shut down.
Get some rest so you can get back out on the campaign. We are honored to have you with us tonight. Thank you so much for making time with us.
Thank you. And I enjoyed this show. I enjoyed my time here. I enjoy what you all are doing. It's Gangstagrass TV, just Gangstagrass period. Just I love it. I want a t-shirt, please.
You got it.
Yeah.
We get you the whole swag pack.
That's right.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you. All right. Love y'all dearly. And thank you for all that you're doing. And thank you for your time. And thank you for having me on here and giving me the opportunity to talk about. I didn't even get to talk about how I want to make my district its own destination, and working with the Women and Minority Business Enterprise Program, and how we want development, but we want to promote responsible development, which is the difference from the development that brings gentrification. How I talked a little bit about supporting our small businesses. I know I talked about parks, sidewalks, street lights, and flooding, improving our community centers to get more arts and culture programs so we can make more people like y'all who are into hip hop bluegrass, right? Because if you're anything like me, you were not good at sports. So we have to foster other types of intelligences because people have different types of intelligences, and we have to let children explore what they're good at so they'll know, right?
Yes.
And just strengthening our neighborhoods by revitalizing the neighborhood associations. Everyone can't run for office, but anybody can join the neighborhood association and have a say. They're the first line of defense. And just, you know, improving quality of life and making this place, which is America's first settlement, a better place.
Yeah, well,
We
we'll
are
hang out
older
with
than
you again
America
soon.
itself.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll have you back and hang out with you again so you can let us know how you're getting all that together and hear more.
Thank you so much.
And give the fam my regards and my love.
I definitely will. Y'all have a good night.
Thank
You
you.
bye.
Thank you.
Oh, the craziness.
All right.
You're
It
still
is,
on.
It's still on.
I don't know. I don't need to say anything spicy.
There we go.
That was some great conversation. We've been on for
Yes.
a couple hours, and another great hangout with Gangstagrass and some amazing friends. So very cool, everybody.
Yeah, I feel real good that we've been able to, get, so many good guests over the past few months that we've been doing this. And especially now that we're rolling into, I guess, the final section of this election season, we want to get some voices out there who are doing the work.
Yo, I have this idea, right? I've been saying this for years. I think that when the elections are all over,
You mean forever? When democracy is completely fallen?
One
The
way or the
darkness
other.
has set
I'm
upon
not
us?
going that far yet.
Okay.
But I think
Just this
that
election.
whoever loses should have to go clean up all the signs.
Yes. Oh.
It's like when you play dominoes and the losing hand has to watch the dominoes.
Yep. If you lost in your district, you gotta go get all the signs, the winners and loser signs. If you lost to your state, you gotta go get all the signs, winners and losers. Everybody that worked for you, you need to be out there. Like I want to see. I personally would like to see in like a week. I want to see Donald Trump's orange butt out on the street picking up signs. That would be okay with me. I'd be fine with
In an
it.
orange
It's a
jumpsuit.
good way to put all of that unused campaign money to use.
Exactly. And anybody that was out there working for you and stumping for you, if they was putting signs up, they need to go get all of them. But you got to get everybody's signs. You got to get the winners and the loser signs.
Yeah. So that we could see Trump putting away a sign that says Biden won't tear gas your mom.
Yo.
Wait, can you show us that sign again? 'Cause
Yes.
I didn't get a chance to get one from my home. I think everyone should see this.
Biden won't tear gas your
One of
mom.
my favorite signs.
Biden won't tear gas your mom.
Made these myself. Conservativesagainsttrump.com. Yes, Biden. Hopefully, it's funny. Whenever I mention that to people, they're like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, I mean, I guess there's some chance, but no. I mean, I'm pretty sure that it shouldn't even be a conversation we have to be having. Like it's on the list of sentences that if you had told us in 2018 in 2 years we would be saying these things, we would be like, what the hell happened?
Yeah, I
wait, damn.
don't know. I'm voting for the guy that took the train to Wilmington every day to work.
Yup.
I'd take that train every day to work.
I'm voting for the guy that gives good, shoulder massages.
Right?
Like, I want that. The president just like, how you doing, citizen?
Looking out, Joe.
And then that on to Hobbits. Full circle, baby. We just full circle. Oh,
change up that international pussy game, shoulder massages. Mm-hmm.
You guys.
You need to actually do them, but like, hopefully he doesn't break anybody's shoulders.
What, John Cena?
Yeah.
John Cena, Gangstagrass, SNL. Let's do it.
I think now that we've brought it back to Hobbit massages, it's that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Very rough.
And listen.
We will be here election night.
Yeah.
Good night, y'all.
We'll get silly.
Yeah.
See you on Tuesday.
See you on Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern.
See you in the
Gangstagrass.tv.
streets.